Hi there VC, Steve Whitty here again. Time for another video, and it's sort of as promised in my previous video which I put out last week that I'd be showing the post-holiday finds. So I came back into the country about 4.5 weeks ago. So yeah, well, I had a great time in Turkey. It's good to come, well, I wouldn't say it's good to come home, but it was good to come back to the familiar things such as flipping for records. I've got about 19 records to show you, so this is going to get me pretty much up to date where I am with my finds. So without further ado, let's start with the first one. Jeff Beck Group, self-titled Jeff Beck Group, the fourth album. It's sometimes known as the Orange Album because of the orange on the cover. This would be the last album that Jeff Beck recorded as the group. He split the group up not long after this. And I thought this was a good album. You know, Jeff Beck is still playing there, and Cozy Powell on the drums is really good. There's a whole lot of good playing on here. Jeff Beck was, it's getting used to saying was a person that didn't stick around the same thing. He'd always looked for something new. Maybe he just got a bit fed up with the whole group, action, and being the leader of the group, just wanted to do what he wanted to do. He obviously would go on to go do sort of his jazz fusion with the albums he produced with George Martin. But yeah, this is a good album. I'm glad I got this. I find this album to have been very rare. I've never seen it. So when I saw it, I just snapped it up. Something a little different. This is East of Eden. This is the album, The World of East of Eden. And it says here, featuring Jigga Jig. East of Eden were very much a sort of folk prog. Featured the violin of Dave Airbus, I think is how you pronounce his name. Sort of like the lead vocals. And it says featuring Jigga Jig. Jigga Jig was their big hit single. It was top 5 single, I think, 1970 or 71. Thinking who else appeared on. Somebody else famous played with them and went on to better things. Dave Dufont was on percussion. His sister Denise, I think it's his sister Denise that's on Girl School. Jeff Britton, yes, he played drums with him for a while, and he ended up being for a short while drummer with Wings. Dave Airbus famously contributed to the violin part to the end of Baba O'Reilly on The Who's next album. So yeah, it's an interesting listen. Sort of prog at the time, and it's part of the series that Decca used to do, The World Of, which was sort of like their take on greatest hits albums. Next up, Frampton by Peter Frampton, and if I get this right, this would have been his 4th studio album, released in 1975. Recorded in the UK. You've got pictures of where it was recorded. Obviously, the tracks, the 2 best known tracks on here is Show Me the Way and Baby I Love Your Way. Obviously, on the tour that accompanied this album spawned Frampton Comes Alive, and pretty much he left the UK. Yeah, but it's very good. It's a very good album. Sort of hints at where he's done. I think I read somewhere that he wrote Show Me the Way and Baby I Love Your Way in literally back to back, within an hour or something like that. And Frampton says, I've been searching for another hour like that for the rest of my career. Yeah, really good album. Don't be defined by, let Peter Frampton be defined by the live album. Some of his studio work is good as well. Something totally different. This is Rhinoceros, and this is their second album, Satin Chickens. Strange title. They were from Canada. I believe. This was released in 1969 on the Elektra label. It's just your standard run-of-the-mill rock record. It was floating around in the cheap bins, and I thought, you know what, this looks interesting. I've seen the first album. I've never owned a copy of it. So yeah, it's what it is. It's standards. It's late 60s rock. Couldn't tell you much more about the band. I just noticed the back cover. It's the first time I've noticed it since I've had it. There's a little chicken up there at the back, so that must be the Satin Chicken. Strange title, but not a bad album. A band that I don't see too many albums by floating in the wild is Spooky Tooth. And I've managed to pick up a copy of their Witness album. This was released in 1973, and at this point the band features Gary Wright and Mick Jones. And knowing what I know now, it's a big hint of the future direction both musicians would go through in their future careers. It's very much steering towards that sort of stadium rock that they both became well known for, particularly Mick Jones. The album just sounded that way. The drummer on there is Mike Kelly, who rejoined the band for this particular album. He ended up becoming the drummer with the Only Ones. So yeah, it's a good album. It's actually, and if I could find any more Spooky Tooth, I certainly will pick it up. It's certainly a band that's well worth checking out, and it's on the Pink Room Island label. I haven't done one of those in a while. It's as I said, I'd returned back from holiday, and literally the first day I went back to work. I work in Solihull. I live in Sutton Coldfield, so it's a bit of a trek, an hour away by public transport. And on my way to the office, literally as I was walking to the office for the first time in about 3 weeks, I passed the Oxfam shop and I spotted an album. Well, I spotted this. It's Small Change by Tom Waits, his fourth album. I thought, well, that ain't going to be there by the time lunchtime comes around. Well, anyway, I thought when I went to lunch, I went over and had a look. I didn't, and then when I picked it up, looked at it, it was sealed. This is one that the reissues from 2018, and yeah, sealed, never been opened, and got donated to Oxfam. And for 20 quid, I thought, you know what, I'm just going to walk, even if I am might be paying a bit too much for it, I'm going to walk away with this. And the reason why, the opening track, Tom Trabad's Blues, is possibly my favourite song of all time. And it's always something I play. It's a very melancholic song. About a guy basically he's had a bit of a rough night out in Copenhagen, but it's just wonderful. The voice absolutely makes that song. The album itself is just a mixture of styles. At the point when this was released, this became his most successful album to that point, which inspired him to go out tour. He appeared on the Old Grey Whistle Test. There is an old, if it not be on YouTube, an Old Grey Whistle Test recording of Tom Trabad's Blues. So I was really pleased to have that. So it made returning to work feel a lot more bearable. Anyhow, Pete in the shop had brought a collection, and there was some more Tom Waits. Put the info back up. Heart Attack and Vine. This came out in 1918. It's his 7th studio album, and it would be the last he recorded for Asylum. Again, it just follows that same route. Waits' voice can be an acquired taste. I think he's just a wonderful songwriter, and possibly what it drew others to his songs, particularly Bruce Springsteen. He covers Jersey Girl. If you've got the Triple Live set, it closes the side 6. It's the closing track on there. His version of it. It's a really great song, really good album. But I think he was finally a bit trapped in Asylum, or he wasn't selling as many records as Asylum wanted, and it just so happened when he got his next deal, and having read the autobiography, he found a kindred spirit in Chris Blackwell, and he gave him. He knew what he got in Tom Waits. He got someone that was pretty special, so allowed him free range to do what he wanted to do, make the album he wanted to make. By this time, he was in. I think might have been married at this time, but he got the relationship he'd been craving for, the settled relationship, and they produced Swordfish Trombones, his first album for Island, and it's again a wonderful album. I was lucky, to end up picking 3 Tom Waits albums in quick short succession. I'd only got the one previously, and I sort of missed out on the reissues. I haven't picked up on any of the new reissues, to be honest. These are all original copies, apart from the small change. So yeah, happy to have some Tom Waits in my collection. Changing tact, Quicksilver, or Quicksilver Messenger Service, I think. This is the album What About Me, released in 1970. It's the 5th album. It's the last album that features Nicky Hopkins on piano. I can't describe it. I'm aware of the name of the band. I've never heard Happy Trails, which is supposed to be their quintessential album. So it's very hard to judge what I got. I enjoyed it. Yeah, put it this way, it's staying in the collection. It's not going. I thought it was a good record. Maybe if I see a copy of Happy Trails, I'll give that a pick, because I believe that is the album you've got to listen to by them. But I enjoyed it. It was enjoyable. Again, late 60s, early 70s, sort of typical at that time. Yeah. I'll be keen to dig some more out of their albums out. An artist that I've been picking up a lot over the last couple of years has been Kevin Ayers, and this is Kevin Ayers and the Whole World, and the album Shooting at the Moon, released in 1970. This isn't an original pressing, this is a 2015 reissue. This is I mentioned maybe in previous video, I might have mentioned last year in one of my videos early in the year. I think this is a shit year video. That Kevin Ayers is seen as sort of like a natural successor to Syd Barrett, and in this album, yeah, you can see why this is the case. Got that quintessential English voice, very experimental, far more experimental than his other albums. And yeah, you've got the band at the back there. So you've got David Bedford, composer and conductor, and Mike Oldfield, bass player. I think he was sharing a flat with Ayers at the time, and it was due to the generosity of Ayers that gave him sort of like gave Mike Oldfield a multi-track tape, which meant he could experiment on his own ideas, which led to Tubular Bells. Outside, this is really good. If you're into Kevin Ayers, I've seen that Joy of the Toy is getting a reissue next year. I've got a reissued copy. It's well worth seeking out. If you're not aware of Kevin Ayers, if you're into the sort of like the Canterbury scene, it's well worth checking out. I really enjoyed listening to this album. Now, something that's considered way too modern for me, or could be, Black Pumas, their debut album from 2019. I'd seen so much about them, read so much about them, I'd streamed the album a couple of times, and I didn't think about buying it, but then I saw it and I saw the price. I just thought, you know what, let's go for it. It's a great album. I've seen it described as psychedelic soul. Yes, it is soul, but it's a bit more to it than that. I haven't brought the second album yet, so I'm really pleased that we've got this. I just think this is wonderful. I'm not, to be honest with you, that au fait with buying new records, because really, limitations on what I can store at the moment. But yeah, really happy to have this. It's a great record. Moving on, Dead Kennedys. If I remember, it's Give Me Convenience or Give Me Death. This is a compilation album released in 1987. Just been reissued. Quite a lot of Dead Kennedys stuff has just been reissued in the UK. This album is basically it's tracks that are either different versions or tracks that have never been released before. Now, the two well-known tracks on here are California Über Alles and Holidays in Cambodia. Now, this is the reason this is why I bought this, because it was the first version I heard of California Über Alles. Was released on Fast Products, and it's the version that's on the album. It's slightly different on the on the actual ended up on the album. Likewise with Holidays in Cambodia. Also got their biggest hit single on there, Too Drunk to Fuck, and it did hit the top 40s, and they obviously couldn't play it, and they couldn't even say it. I think Tony Blackburn, when he did the top 40, just said in at number 34, I think it was the highest got, was the Dead Kennedys, and that's all he could do. That's all anyone could do. He couldn't even, Peel couldn't even play it, you know. But the record itself, again, long time since I've done anything like that. It's on a nice bright orange record vinyl. You can tell I'm out of practice of showing the actual inside of the record. It's absolutely wonderful album. Mixture of live, as I said, not reissues. I might see if I can pick up some of the other Dead Kennedy albums. Well worth checking out. The story I know of Jello Biafra was he stood for mayor in 1979 of San Francisco, and he part of his manifesto was that all civil servants would have to go around dressed as clowns. He come fourth out of 10 candidates based on that. So, as a civil servant, it could have been worse. I could have been wearing a red nose now. Now, if I'd have planned this video properly, I would have had to be shown this album after Kevin Ayers when I talked about Canterbury Scene. For many people, this is the quintessential Canterbury album. It's Caravans. If I could do it all over again, I'd do it all over you. This came out in 1970, and it's the second album. And yeah, it's to many it's their masterpiece. Or In the Land of Graham Pink, which followed in 71. I've been after this for a while. This is a brand new reissue, reissued a couple of weeks ago, and originals. Well, the local shop's got one, 70 quid. Yeah, no way I was going to pull the trigger on that. This is a lovely reissue, lovely sound record, great sounding record. Caravan is a band that I wasn't really aware of at the time. I've been gradually introduced to them by Peter at the shop. I think they're his favourite band, or one of his favourite bands. But there's something about them, something quirky. There's some humour in there. There's something really that it's just enjoyable music to listen to, and I'm really glad that I've discovered Caravan. Moving up England, you go to Ladbroke Grove, and you discovered the Pink Fairies. This is their second album, What a Bunch of Sweeties, and this was released in 1972. This is again a new reissue. It's just been come out, and it's in lovely pink vinyl. And yeah, it's again, it's of its time. It's only sort of like rough rock, sort of precurses punk a little bit. And I think Mick Farren was in the band at this point. Trevor Burton plays guitar on a couple of tracks, but you got version. They do a version of the Beatles. I Saw Us Standing There. It's very sort of I think rough and ready, very loud. I'd imagine this watching them live would have been an experience, but it's enjoyable, loud, good rock record. As I said, sort of acts as a precursor to punk, so that'll do for me. One of the most influential bands of the 70s was Dr. Feelgood, and this is their fourth album, Sneaking Suspicion. This would be the last album to feature Wilko Johnson. I believe he left during the recording sessions. Him and Lee Brillo just couldn't bear being together. I think Lee Brillo was a little bit, I think it was a little bit put out that Wilko would always get the attention because of his antics with the guitar. You know, it's one that they never made up. They never made up when Lee Brillo passed away first, I think 30 years ago. It's coming up to 30 years ago, but yeah. So this is not a bad album. It's not up there with the first two, I have to say, but it's good. It's you know, it's very much you know, it's very much of its time. It's whether it's there would have been a band running out of steam. They did have a hit single with a following album with Milk and Alcohol, but then sort of sort of disappeared a little bit. It just fell out of kilter. But there's still a version of Dr. Feelgood going. I think they've been allowed to use the name and keep it going. I don't know what I feel about that. You know, bands that no longer have any members in them still going trading under them. You might as well just say it's a tribute act rather than just say you're the real McCoy, in my opinion. A band that I heard of, but I'd never found a copy of their records, mainly because they're damn expensive, is Egg. One of the sort of like second division prog bands. This is a comp called 7 is a Jolly Good Time. This was released in 1985 on the C for Miles label. And they were quite prominent in the 80s for reissuing, for doing reissues. And effectively, this is the debut album by Egg, plus the only single they ever released, which is 7 is a jolly good time. And it's okay. It's prog. It's really more. I think more on the folky side of the prog. Whether I'd go out seeking another album, if it came up, I might probably would be tempted. I did enjoy the album. Maybe it's a band whose name sort of precedes, the reputation precedes what the actual records sound like. But, you know, at least I can say I've got some Egg in my collection, and I don't want to be left with Egg on my face. More prog, and I think the rest of the video is going to be prog-centric. Gentle Giant, Freehand. This is the 7th album released in 1975. This isn't an original copy. They moved to Chrysalis at this point from Vertigo. This is actually a 2021 reissue where it's a double album. gatefold. So you got the original album from Original Tapes, and then record 2 is the Steven Wilson 2021 remix. Now, obviously, Steven Wilson's been doing a lot of remixes, a lot of albums. I never got around to buying any. I think if I've got it, I haven't. But I hadn't got this album. So to have it come up with the remix as well. So it was a little bit of intrigue. And it's a bit like most remixes. It just pushes certain elements, the instruments a bit further to the point, further up. A bit like what they've done with the Beatles, you know. The bongos on Hard Day's Night is the example. Not that I'm comparing the Hard Day's Night to Freehand by Gentle Giant. It's great, it's good. I like it. I've been getting into Gentle Giant quite a lot recently. But again, it's quite, you know, sort of band that sort of passed my radar. It's certainly at the time. And when I started buying records, it got pushed aside. It's only, I think, a lot through Prog magazine that I get to hear about these bands, and then obviously they're getting the reissues done. There's a few more of the early stuff that I would love to get hold of. But yeah, I'm really pleased, really happy to have found this album. Jethro Tull, The Broadsword and the Beast, released in 1982. I thought, I'm not going to get the reissue. I saw a copy of the original album, and that'll do for me. As I said, released in 1982, I think sort of sparked a little bit of an upturn for the band. This is very much traditional Tull meets more the electronic music that was coming around at that time. But I remember being at school, and it was being talked about this album a lot when it came out. And it is basically, it's a concept, I think, and it's split into two sides of the record. Each side has got a theme running through it. So side A is the Beastie side, and side B is the Broadsword. And the best track is Broadsword itself, that opens side 2. But it's up there with, I think it's up there, not quite up with Applelong, but it's up there with some of the better albums they put out. A real return to form. I've got a few of their 80s records, well, a few of their CDs from the 80s. So, yeah, pleased to find that. It was an album that I'd not had in any form, so I was happy to have that come to my collection. And at last, the final record. Bill Nelson, Quit Dreaming and Get on the Beam. I feel Bill Nelson is very underrated, both as a guitarist and a producer and a writer. He's always been, to me, someone that's trying to push the boundaries of what he can do. Hence why, you know, he split up Bebop Deluxe. He felt he couldn't take them any further. Then he formed Red Noise. And then when Red Noise imploded, partly because Harvest, EMI kicked him off, he went on his own. Now, these are tracks that were written in 1978 and recorded in 1979. So it's a bit of like a sort of a comp of that period. This album was released in 1981, and man, this is great. It sounds great. His guitar playing top notch and top notch songs. And he's on Mercury, but it sort of matches, the label matches the colour of the album, sort of grey and yellow. It's just wonderful. As I say, I can't get enough of Bill Nelson. And obviously, you showed me I showed some Bill Nelson in my previous video. I just think he's wonderful. Done a Bebop Deluxe video years ago. I want to try and get some more Bill Nelson. When I looked at his discography, I almost fell off my chair thinking it needs a Calyx unit of his own. But wonderful, really wonderful record, and a really wonderful record to finish this video on. And there you go, VC. Hope you've stuck with me to the end. I do appreciate those people who watched my last video. I was a bit sceptical, you know, been a while. But But you know, I do have my core watchers, which I'm really appreciative about. Don't take you for granted. There's so many so much good content out there. So I'm really pleased that you're sticking with me. As always, thumbs up, thumbs down. I always love and leave a comment. I always love the interaction. That's what I do it for. Don't really do it for the subscribers. But yeah, look after yourselves, VC. Whatever you do, keep spinning. More importantly, keep on smiling.